The crystal wine glass slipped from my fingers. I watched it fall in slow motion, the burgundy liquid arcing through the air like blood, the glass tumbling toward the marble floor of the most exclusive restaurant in the city. My heart stopped. 3 months of serving Chicago's elite, and I'd never once made a mistake. Until tonight. Until him. I'm so sorry, The words died in my throat as I dropped to my knees, reaching for the shattered pieces. His hand caught mine first. The touch sent electricity straight through my veins, a jolt so powerful I gasped. My eyes snapped up, and I found myself staring into the darkest gaze I'd ever seen. Not brown. Not black. Something deeper. Something that seemed to see straight through flesh and bone into the terrified, messy soul I kept hidden beneath my polite waitress smile. Dante Moretti. Even if I hadn't recognized him from the newspapers, and I did, I would have known he was dangerous. Power radiated from him like heat from a flame. The perfectly tailored suit that probably cost more than my yearly rent. The way every person in the restaurant had gone silent when he'd walked in, as if oxygen itself had left the room. The way he was looking at me now. Not at my face. At my wrist. His thumb had frozen over the small, crescent-shaped birthmark on my inner wrist, the one I'd had since birth. The one my mother used to kiss when I was small and tell me made me special. Where did you get this? His voice was low, rough, edged with something I couldn't name. Command. Desperation. Fury. It's a birthmark. I was born with it. My pulse hammered against his fingertips. He had to feel it. Had to know how terrified I was. His grip tightened. Not painful, but inescapable. What's your name? Elena. The word came out barely a whisper. Elena Russo. Something flickered across his face. Shock, pain, recognition. His jaw clenched so hard I could see the muscle jump beneath his skin. Around us, his men shifted closer. 3 of them, dressed in dark suits, hands moving toward their jackets in a way that made my blood run cold. How old are you? He wasn't asking. He was demanding. 23. Sir, I really need to... Your mother's name? The question hit me like a slap. My mother had died when I was 6. Car accident, they'd told me. But the way this man was looking at me, the way his hand trembled slightly against my skin despite the iron control in his voice. Maria, I whispered. Maria Russo. The name hung in the air between us like a ghost. Dante Moretti released my wrist so suddenly I almost fell backward. He stood in one fluid motion, towering over me, his face a mask of stone. But his eyes, God. His eyes burned with something wild and wounded and absolutely terrifying. Clear the restaurant, he said quietly. One of his men stepped forward immediately. Boss, now. I watched in stunned silence as the man moved through the dining room, speaking in low tones to the manager. Within minutes, the entire restaurant was being evacuated. Confused patrons, annoyed celebrities, even the staff all ushered out with apologies and what looked like substantial compensation. All except me. I remained kneeling on the floor, surrounded by broken glass and spilled wine, while the most feared man in Chicago stood above me, looking at me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve, or a ghost he couldn't banish. When the last person filed out, and the heavy doors closed with a final, ominous click, Dante spoke again. Stand up. I obeyed on shaking legs. The restaurant felt cavernous now, silent except for the soft jazz still playing from hidden speakers. Romantic music in a room that suddenly felt like a cage. He circled me slowly, studying me with an intensity that made my skin burn. Your mother. Tell me about her. She died when I was 6. I barely remember her. And your father? I never knew him. The old wound throbbed. My mother raised me alone. We didn't have much, but this birthmark. He stepped closer. So close I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive and dangerously intoxicating. Show me. With trembling fingers, I held up my wrist. The crescent moon shape seemed to glow in the dim restaurant lighting. Innocent and small and apparently catastrophic. Dante pulled out his phone with the careful control of a man trying not to break something. Or someone. He scrolled through his photos, then held the screen toward me. My heart stopped. It was a little girl, maybe 3 years old, with dark curls and a bright smile. She was laughing, her small hand reaching toward the camera, and on her inner wrist, identical to mine, was a crescent-shaped birthmark. My daughter, he said, his voice cracking on the word. Isabella. She would have been 23 this year. She would have looked exactly like you. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Would have been? She was taken from me 20 years ago. His hand clenched. Around the phone, knuckles white. Along with her mother, my wife. They disappeared one night, and I've spent 2 decades searching for them. 2 decades blaming myself. 2 decades becoming the monster I needed to be to find them. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. I can't be. The birthmark is hereditary. Rare. My wife had it. My daughter had it. His gaze pinned me in place, dark and desperate and absolutely certain. And now you're standing here, in my city, with my dead wife's maiden name and that same mark on your wrist, telling me you're 23 years old and your mother's name was Maria. This is insane, I breathed. You're saying my mother was... Your mother was my wife, he said. And the words seemed to cost him everything. Which means you, Elena Russo, are my daughter, the child I've mourned for 20 years. The reason I built an empire on blood and vengeance. He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the unshed tears in his eyes, the decades of pain carved into the harsh lines of his face. You're alive, you're here, and I'm never letting you go. Before I could process, before I could run or scream or do anything rational, he pulled me into his arms, a desperate, crushing embrace that felt like coming home and walking into a nightmare all at once. Over his shoulder, through the restaurant's windows, I saw a black car pull up outside. Men emerged, moving with military precision, and I realized with cold, creeping horror that my simple life, my small apartment, my college classes, my dreams of becoming a teacher had just shattered as completely as that wine glass. The Mafia boss thought I was his daughter, and judging by the possessive way he held me, the armed men surrounding the building, and the absolute certainty in his voice, he was never going to let me prove him wrong. The penthouse was a cage made of marble and gold. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, 40 stories above Chicago, and wondered if the fall would kill me before I hit the ground. Wondered if that would be better than whatever was happening here. 24 hours since Dante Moretti had upended my entire existence. 24 hours since he'd carried me from that restaurant, literally carried me, despite my protests, and brought me to this gilded prison. Behind me, I heard his footsteps, measured, controlled, the sound of a predator who always knew exactly where his prey was standing. You haven't eaten. His voice was softer than it had been last night, but no less commanding. I'm not hungry. I didn't turn around. Couldn't. If I looked at him, I might start screaming and never stop. Elena, don't call me that. Now I did turn, rage finally overriding terror. You don't have the right to call me by my name. You don't have the right to keep me here. I'm not your daughter. He stood in the doorway of the obscenely large living room, still wearing the suit from last night. Had he slept? His dark hair was slightly disheveled, his tie loosened, but his eyes, those impossibly dark eyes, were alert, desperate. The birthmark is a coincidence. Genetics are weird, Mr. Moretti. That doesn't mean... I've had my doctor draw your blood. He said it so calmly, so matter-of-factly. He ran a DNA test overnight. The results will be here within hours. Ice flooded my veins. You had someone draw my blood while I was sleeping? You needed to rest. You were in shock. I was drugged. The memory of the sweet tea one of his men had brought me. The sudden drowsiness. Waking up in a bedroom that wasn't mine with a bandage on my arm. Sedated, he corrected, as if that made it better. For your own protection. You were hysterical. I was kidnapped. The shout echoed through the penthouse. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then Dante did something unexpected. He flinched. Actual pain crossed his face. There and gone in a heartbeat. But I'd seen it. I know how this looks, he said, quietly. I know I've terrified you. But Elena, if there's even a chance, his voice cracked. If there's even a possibility that you're Isabella, that my daughter survived, that I didn't fail to protect you. Stop. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the expensive heating system. Just stop. My name is Elena Russo. My mother was Maria Russo. She was a waitress and a seamstress who worked 2 jobs to keep us fed. She died in a car accident when I was 6, and I've spent 17 years missing her. That's my life. That's my truth. And if your truth is a lie... He stepped closer, and I saw the desperation bleeding through his controlled exterior. What if the woman you knew as Maria Russo was actually Maria Santoro? My wife. What if that car accident was staged? What if she ran from me to protect you from my world, changed your names, and spent 6 years looking over her shoulder before they finally found her? The room spun. They, my enemies, his jaw, clenched. I had many back then, rival families who would have done anything to hurt me. I thought. He closed his eyes briefly. I thought they'd killed you both. I found the car, Elena. I found blood. I mourned you. I became someone capable of burning the world down to punish the people I thought had destroyed my family. I sank onto the leather sofa, legs unable to support me. This is insane. You're insane. I'm a lot of things. He crossed to the bar, poured 2 glasses of amber liquid, brought one to me. Dangerous. Ruthless. A killer. Yes, but not insane. And not wrong. Not about this. I didn't take the drink. What if the DNA test proves I'm not her? Will you let me go? Silence stretched between us like a chasm. Dante. I forced myself to say his name. If I'm not Isabella, will you let me go? You are. The absolute certainty in his voice made my blood run cold. But if somehow I'm wrong, which I'm not, then yes. I'll let you go. I'll give you enough money today. Disappear if you want. To start over somewhere I can't follow. Your word? On my daughter's grave. The pain in those words was so raw I almost believed him. On everything I've become in the 20 years since I lost her. Before I could respond, the elevator chimed. A man in a white coat stepped out, holding a manila envelope. He looked nervous, the kind of nervous people get around Dante Moretti. Mr. Moretti. The results. Time stopped. Dante took the envelope with steady hands, but I saw the tremor in his fingers as he opened it, saw the way he had to blink several times to focus on the words, saw the exact moment everything changed. His knees seemed to give out. He sank into the chair across from me, the paper falling from his hands, tears streaming unchecked down his face. This man, this feared Mafia boss who probably ordered deaths before breakfast, was crying. Isabella, he whispered. Mia Figlia, my daughter. The world tilted sideways. No. I shook my head. No, that's not it, can't be. He looked up at me with devastation and joy warring in his expression. 99.9% match. You're mine, Elena. You're my daughter. You're the child I've spent 20 years mourning. You're alive. I grabbed the paper with shaking hands. Read the results myself. Saw the clinical proof that everything I'd believed about my identity, my past, my mother, all of it was a lie. Maria Russo hadn't been my mother. She'd been my kidnapper. And the monster sitting across from me, the Mafia boss whose very name made people cross themselves, he was my father. I'm going to be sick, I managed, right before I bolted for the bathroom. Behind me, I heard Dante's broken voice. Find out everything. I want to know exactly what happened 20 years ago. I want to know why my wife ran. I want to know who helped her. And I want to know. His voice turned to ice. I want to know how Maria died. Because if someone killed her before she could bring my daughter home, they're going to wish they'd never been born. I barely made it to the toilet before I vomited, the taste of my old life burning as it came back up. When I finally emerged, pale and shaking, Dante was standing in the hallway, waiting. I know you need time, he said softly. I know this is God. I can't even imagine what you're feeling. But Elena Isabella, daughter. The word seemed to break him. You're safe now. You're home. And I swear on everything I am, nothing and no one will ever take you from me again. The vow sounded like a promise. But to me, it felt like a threat. The photographs covered an entire wall of Dante's private study. I stood frozen in the doorway, staring at a shrine to a life I didn't remember. A dark-haired woman with my eyes holding a baby. The same woman, older, laughing as a toddler, reached for her necklace. The little girl with the crescent birthmark, caught in 100 different moments of joy. A family I should have been part of. She was beautiful, I whispered, studying the woman who was apparently my real mother, Maria Santoro. The most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. Dante's voice came from behind me, rough with old grief. I met her at her father's restaurant. She was 19, studying art history, and wanted nothing to do with a man like me. It took me 6 months to convince her to have coffee with me. Despite everything, I felt a pull toward the story. What changed her mind? I saved her little brother from a mugging, took a knife for him. A dark smile crossed his face. She showed up at the hospital, furious that I'd been so reckless, and I knew I'd marry her. Knew it in my bones. I traced my fingers over a photo of my mother in a wedding dress. She looked radiant, young, alive in a way I'd never seen Maria Russo look. She knew what you were. She knew everything. The family business, the violence, the blood on my hands. He moved to stand beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. Her father was on the periphery of our world, not a soldier, but close enough to understand. She made me promise that our children would have a choice, that I'd never force this life on them. Yet here I am. The bitterness tasted like ash. Here you are, very much forced. His reflection in the glass-covered photographs looked haunted. I've broken every promise I made to her. But I won't lose you again. I turned to face him fully for the first time since the DNA results. In the soft lamplight of the study, he looked older than his 45 years, tired. The lines around his eyes spoke of sleepless nights and hard decisions. And he was my father. The thought still felt surreal. Impossible. Tell me what you remember, he said suddenly. About Maria Russo. About your life before 6. Anything. I sank into the leather chair by his desk, exhausted. Not much. Fragments. We moved a lot, I remember that. Different apartments, different cities. She was always looking over her shoulder, always jumpy when someone knocked on the door. The memories crystallized as I spoke them aloud. She used to check the locks 3 times before bed, made me promise never to talk to strangers, never to tell anyone my real. I stopped cold. What? Dante leaned forward, intense. She used to say real name. I thought she meant strangers, you know. Don't tell strangers your name. But my hands trembled. What if she meant something else? What if Elena Russo wasn't my real name? Isabella Maria Moretti. He said it softly, reverently. That was the name we gave you. Isabella for my grandmother. Maria for your mother. Isabella. The name felt foreign in my mind, like a dress that didn't quite fit. I can't just start calling myself that. I know. He surprised me by not pushing. Elena is who you've been for 20 years. I won't take that from you too. The unexpected gentleness made my throat tight. I'd expected demands, orders. The ruthless mafia boss everyone whispered about. Not this broken man trying so hard not to scare me further. The car accident, I said, changing the subject before I did something stupid like cry. The one that killed Maria Russo. What do you know about it? His expression darkened. That's what my men are investigating now. I need to understand what happened. Whether it was truly an accident or the study door burst open. A man I recognized from the restaurant, one of Dante's guards, stood there, breathing hard. Boss, we found something. Tension flooded the room. Dante's entire demeanor changed, shifting from grieving father to commanding leader in a heartbeat. Report. The car accident. It wasn't an accident. Someone tampered with the brakes. We found evidence of cut lines, made to look like wear and tear but too precise, too clean. My blood turned to ice. Someone murdered her? It gets worse. The guard looked at me with something like pity. The timing. It was 6 days after Maria Russo called a lawyer about updating her will. She was going to leave everything to Elena, including a safety deposit box key. Dante's hand slammed down on the desk hard enough to make me jump. Find that box. I want to know what was in it. And find out who knew about that phone call. Someone was watching her. Someone who didn't want her secrets getting out. Already on it, boss. But there's more. The guard shifted uncomfortably. We pulled Maria Russo's phone records from 17 years ago. 3 days before she died, she made a call to a Chicago number. It rang for 30 seconds. No answer, but what? Dante's voice was deadly quiet. The number was registered to the Moretti estate. Your private line, sir. The one only family had access to. The room went silent. I watched the revelation hit Dante like a physical blow. She was calling me? We can't prove it. The call was never completed. But she tried to reach someone in your home 3 days before she died. She was coming back. Dante's voice broke. Maria was going to bring Isabella home. She was reaching out, and I never knew. I never got the message. Someone intercepted it, I heard myself say, the pieces clicking together with horrible clarity. Someone who knew what that call meant, who knew she was still alive, who couldn't let her come back. Dante's eyes met mine, and I saw murder in them. Someone in my own house. Boss. The guard looked grim. There's one more thing. We ran backgrounds on everyone who was in your household 20 years ago. Most are dead, retired, or accounted for. But one name popped up, someone who was your driver back then, who disappeared shortly after Maria and Isabella were declared dead. Who? Vincent Russo. My heart stopped. That was Maria Russo's maiden name. The name she gave me. It was no coincidence. Dante stood, his whole body radiating barely controlled violence. Vincent was my driver. My fucking driver. I trusted him to take Maria and Isabella to her parents' house that night. I trusted him to keep them safe. And instead he helped her run. I finished, the horrible truth settling over me like a shroud. He helped her fake our deaths. Helped her hide. Changed his last name to Russo and became what? Her husband? My father figure? I don't remember him, I said desperately, searching my fragmented memories. I don't remember any man in our lives. Because he probably stayed away, made sure he couldn't be traced to you. Dante's mind was working, calculating, but he knew where you were, knew Maria Russo's identity, and when she tried to come back, he killed her. The words tasted like poison. To keep the secret, to protect himself. Dante pulled out his phone, made a call. His voice was ice and death. I want Vincent Russo found. I want him brought to me alive. I want him to suffer for every moment I spent mourning my family while he lived free. And I want answers why Maria ran, what she told him, and whether she ever, his voice cracked, whether she ever stopped loving me. He hung up and turned to me, this man who was my father, this killer who'd just promised torture for the man who'd stolen 20 years of our lives. I'm going to find him. Isabella, Elena, whoever you choose to be. His hand reached out, hovering near my face but not quite touching, as if I were made of glass. And when I do, you're going to tell me whether you want him dead quick or slow. Because that choice is yours. You're the one he stole from. You're the one who deserves justice. I should have been horrified. Should have run screaming from this world of violence and revenge. But as I looked at the photos of my mother, my real mother, and the little girl I'd been, rage bloomed hot and dark in my chest. I want to know why first, I said, and my voice sounded strange. Harder. I want to know why my mother ran from you. What she was so afraid of that she'd fake our deaths and steal me from my father. And then I met Dante's eyes, saw the darkness there, and felt an answering darkness in myself. Then you can kill him. His smile was terrible and proud. That's my daughter. And God help me. Part of me liked how it sounded. I dreamed of my mother that night. Not Maria Russo, the exhausted waitress who'd raised me. Maria Santoro, young and laughing, holding me in a garden full of roses. She was singing something in Italian, a lullaby I didn't know I remembered until this moment. In the dream, she looked at me with infinite sadness. I'm sorry, Stellina, my little star. I never wanted this for you. I woke with tears on my face and the scent of roses still clinging to my consciousness. The penthouse was dark except for the city lights bleeding through the windows. I pulled on the silk robe someone had left in the closet. Someone had filled an entire wardrobe with clothes in my size, which should have felt invasive, but mostly just felt efficient, and padded out into the living room. Dante stood at the windows, silhouetted against Chicago's glittering skyline. He'd changed into black pants and a white dress shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. Even in the dim light, I could see the scars on his forearms. Evidence of a violent life. Couldn't sleep? His voice was quiet, not surprised by my presence. Nightmares. You? I haven't slept through a night in 20 years. He didn't turn around. I kept thinking, what if I'd heard the phone ring that day? What if I'd answered? Would she have told me where she was? Would I have brought you both home? I moved to stand beside him, drawn by the raw grief in his voice. Or maybe whoever intercepted the call would have killed you too. Maybe she saved your life by not getting through. He finally looked at me, surprise flickering across his face. Why would you care about that? Because... I stopped, unsure how to articulate the confusing tangle of emotions. Because you're my father. Even if I can't fully process that yet. Even if this whole situation is insane. You didn't ask for this either. You didn't ask to lose 20 years with your daughter. But I did lose them. His hand clenched on the window frame. And I can never get them back. I should have watched you grow up. Should have taught you to ride a bike, scared away bad boyfriends, walked you to your first day of school. Instead I got what? A terrified 23-year-old woman who looks at me like I'm the monster under her bed. You are a monster, I said honestly. You've probably killed people. You've definitely kidnapped me. You run a criminal empire. But I chose my words carefully. You're also someone who spent 20 years mourning, who built that shrine in your study, who cries when you look at photos of the daughter you thought was dead. So maybe you're both, monster and father. He was quiet for a long moment. I can live with that, as long as you stay. I'm not going anywhere right now. The admission cost me, but it was true. I need answers as much as you do. I need to understand why my mother, why Maria Santoro ran, what she was protecting me from. Or who, Dante said darkly. A phone buzzed. He pulled it from his pocket, read the message, and his entire body went rigid. They found him. Vincent Russo. He's been living in Milwaukee under an assumed name. They're bringing him here now. My heart hammered. How long? An hour, maybe less. He turned to face me fully, his dark eyes searching mine. Are you sure you want to be there? It won't be pretty, Elena. I'm going to hurt him. I'm going to make him talk. And then I'm going to... I want to be there, surprising myself with the conviction. I want to hear why. I want to understand. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then you should know what you're walking into. This world, my world, it runs on blood and fear. When we question someone, we don't ask. Nicely. We break bones until they tell us the truth. We use pain as currency. And I'm very good at it. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to give you an out. His voice gentled slightly. Once you cross this line, there's no going back. Once you watch me do what I'm going to do to Vincent Russo, you can't unsee it. You can't pretend your father is just a businessman with a rough reputation. You'll know, bone deep, what I really am. I thought about the woman in my dreams. The mother who'd run so far and hidden so carefully. The mother who died before she could explain why. I can't unsee what I've already seen, I told him. I can't unknow what I now know. So stop trying to protect my innocence, Dante. It died the moment you grabbed my wrist in that restaurant. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Or grief for the normal life I'd just consciously chosen to leave behind. Then get dressed, he said. Wear something dark. Blood shows. The basement of Dante's building was nothing like the luxurious penthouse above. Concrete walls, industrial lighting, a drain in the center of the floor that made my stomach turn when I realized what it was for. Vincent Russo hung by his wrists from a chain, feet barely touching the ground. He was older than I'd imagined, 60, maybe, with gray hair and the kind of weathered face that came from years of looking over his shoulder. His eyes widened when he saw me. Madonna, Isabella, you look just like your mother. The name sounded wrong in his mouth. Why? I asked, surprised by how steady my voice was. Why did you help her run? She asked me to. Simple, direct. She was terrified, and she asked me to save her daughter, so I did. Dante circled him like a predator. Terrified of what? Of me? I loved her. I would have died for her. You would have killed for her too. Vincent met his gaze unflinchingly. That's what she was afraid of. What you'd become. What you'd do to protect your family. She didn't want that life for Isabella. Didn't want her daughter growing up in a world where love was measured in bodies and loyalty was enforced with bullets. So she faked our deaths? Let me mourn for 20 years? Dante's voice was deadly quiet. Let me become exactly the monster she feared, all in the name of some misguided protection. She was going to tell you. Vincent's voice cracked. I tried to stop her, told her it was too dangerous. But she said you deserved to know your daughter was alive. That 20 years was enough punishment for sins you hadn't even committed yet. And then someone cut the brake lines on her car. I stepped closer, ignoring Dante's warning hand on my arm. Did you do it? No. The word was vehement. I loved her too. Not like him. But she was brave and kind, and she trusted me with the most precious thing in her world. I would never have hurt her, but you know who did. Dante pulled a knife from his belt, casual, practiced. You know, or you suspect. So start talking, Vincent. Because my patients died the same day I thought my family did. Vincent's eyes tracked the blade. Fear. Finally. You want the truth? The real reason Maria ran? Yes. My voice and Dante's overlapped. She found something. Papers. Evidence of a deal you'd made, Dante. A deal with the Calabrese family that would have required... He stopped, looking at me with something like pity. Required what? I demanded. A marriage alliance. You were 3 years old, and your father had already promised you to the Calabrese heir when you turned 18. A bond sealed in blood and binding. Maria found the contract, saw that you'd sold your daughter's future for peace and power. The world stopped spinning. I turned slowly to look at Dante, who'd gone white as ash. Tell me he's lying. Dante's hand clenched on the knife. It was different back then. The Calabrese family was poised to go to war with us. Hundreds would have died. The marriage alliance it was politics, business, not love. I finished, ice in my veins. Not choice? You promised your 3-year-old daughter to a stranger to avoid a war, and you wonder why my mother ran? The Calabrese heir died when he was 16, Dante said desperately. Car accident. The contract became void. It was I never intended. You sold me. The betrayal was a physical thing, sharp and cutting. Before I could even talk, before I could understand, you decided my entire future. And my mother knew. She knew you'd do it again if the price was right. No. He reached for me, and I jerked back. Isabella, please. I was young, stupid, trying to build something that would last. I didn't what? Didn't think your daughter deserved a choice in her own life? Rage burned through the shock. Didn't think that maybe selling children was wrong? Or did you just not think at all? Vincent watched us with sad eyes. She was protecting you from more than just violence, Isabella. She was protecting you from becoming a commodity, a bargaining chip in your father's empire. Who killed her? Dante's voice was broken, but the knife in his hand was steady. If not you, then who? Who knew she was coming back? I don't know for certain. Vincent swallowed hard. But 3 days before she died, someone approached me, offered me money to disappear, to make sure Maria never made that phone call she was planning. I refused, but he closed his eyes. I think they went around me, and I think they're still in your organization, Dante. Someone close enough to know about the call. Someone who had something to lose if Maria came back. Who? The word was a snarl. I don't know. I swear on my life, I don't know. But Vincent looked at me again. But whoever it was, they knew about the marriage contract. They knew what Maria was really running from. And they knew that if she came back, if she told you the truth, you'd never forgive yourself. That the guilt would destroy you. Dante's knife clattered to the floor. I watched my father, this powerful, terrifying man, crumble under the weight of Vincent's words. Watched him realize that his wife hadn't just been running from his violence. She'd been running from his ambition. From a man who'd love his daughter enough to mourn her for 20 years, but who'd also loved power enough to sell her future before she could walk. Get him out of here, Dante said hoarsely. Lock him up. I'll decide what to do with him later. As Vincent was cut down and dragged away, I stood frozen in the basement that smelled of fear and old blood, staring at the man who was my father. Don't, he said when I opened my mouth. Don't say it. Don't tell me what I already know. That I destroyed my own family. That I drove the woman I loved into such fear that she'd rather fake her death than trust me. That I'm exactly the monster she thought I'd become. No, I said quietly. I was going to ask you something. He looked up, eyes red-rimmed. What? If another family came to you today, if they offered peace in exchange for me, if they wanted to bind me to their heir to avoid bloodshed. I stepped closer, forcing him to look at me. Would you do it? Would you sell me again? The silence stretched between us, heavy with the weight of 20 years and all the ways love could be both salvation and poison. Finally Dante spoke, and his voice was raw with truth. I'd burn the entire city down first. I'd go to war with every family from here to New York. I'd paint the streets red before I let anyone take another choice from you. He met my eyes, and I saw the monster and the father warring in his expression. But that doesn't change what I did. That doesn't bring your mother back. That doesn't give you the childhood you deserved. No, I agreed. It doesn't. I turned and walked toward the stairs, leaving him alone with his guilt and his ghosts. Behind me I heard something break. A table, maybe. Or a man. And I wondered if this was how my mother had felt loving someone despite the darkness, fearing them because of it, and never quite knowing which emotion would win. 3 days passed in the gilded cage of Dante's penthouse. 3 days of avoiding him, of eating meals in my room, of staring at photos of a family I didn't remember, and trying to reconcile the smiling man in those pictures with the one who'd bartered his daughter's future like livestock. On the fourth morning, I found him waiting in the kitchen. "You can't hide from me forever," he said, not looking up from his coffee. "This is my home." "It's your prison," I corrected, pouring my own cup with steady hands. "You said I could leave after the DNA test proved I wasn't Isabella, but I am. So what happens now? Do I get to choose? Or have you already decided my future again?" The barb hit its mark. His jaw tightened. "That's not fair. Neither was selling a 3-year-old. I sat across from him, forcing the confrontation. Neither was 20 years of my mother living in fear. Neither was keeping me here against my will, no matter how luxurious the accommodations. You want to leave?" He finally met my eyes, and I saw devastation there. "After everything we've learned, after finding out someone in my organization murdered your mother to keep secrets buried, you want to walk back out into the world where they could find you, kill you to tie up loose ends?" I hadn't thought about that, about being a target, a liability. "Then what do you suggest? I stay here forever? Become another possession in your collection?" "I suggest—" He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. "I suggest you let me teach you how to protect yourself, how to survive in this world. You're a Moretti, Isabella. That name carries weight, power, but also danger. If you're going to carry it, you need to know how to defend it. I go by Elena." "Fine, Elena." He said it like a concession. "Will you at least consider it? Learning from me? Not as my prisoner, but as my daughter?" The distinction felt important to him. Maybe it was important to me too. "And if I say no, then I'll assign guards to follow you everywhere you go for the rest of your life. Because I won't lose you again, but I won't chain you here either." He leaned forward, intensity burning in his dark eyes. "I've made mistakes. God knows I've made terrible mistakes. But I'm trying, Elena. I'm trying to be better than the man your mother ran from. I'm trying to be the father you deserved." The sincerity in his voice cracked something in my chest. "You can't just erase 20 years with good intentions. I know, but maybe I can build something new. Maybe we both can." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. The change in his expression was immediate, from vulnerable father to deadly boss in a heartbeat. "What?" His voice was clipped. I watched him listen, watched his face harden into a mask of cold fury. "Send the address to my car. Elena and I will handle it personally." He hung up and stood. "Get dressed. Something you can move in. We have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "The kind that requires my personal attention." He paused at the doorway. "Someone's been asking questions about you. About a waitress named Elena Russo who disappeared from an upscale restaurant 3 days ago. Word is getting out that you exist, that I have you. We need to send a message before this spirals." My blood ran cold. "What kind of message?" His smile was all teeth and no warmth. "The kind written in blood. Now get dressed. This is your first lesson how to make people fear crossing the Moretti family." The warehouse on the south side looked abandoned from the outside. Inside, it was filled with 20 of Dante's men, all armed, all standing in a loose circle around 3 people zip-tied to chairs. 2 men and a woman, all young, all terrified. "Who are they?" I asked quietly, staying close to Dante's side as we entered. "Reporters, freelance journalists trying to make names for themselves." He approached them with the casual confidence of a predator. "They've been digging into your disappearance, making calls to the restaurant, interviewing your neighbors, asking dangerous questions." The woman, blonde and probably not much older than me, lifted her chin defiantly. "It's called journalism. People have a right to know when someone goes missing. People have a right to survive too." Dante's voice was ice. "And you've forfeited that right by sticking your nose into my family's business. We're just doing our jobs. Your job is going to get you killed." He gestured, and one of his men stepped forward with a tablet, showing them photos on the screen. "Recognize these locations? Your apartments, your family's homes, your favorite coffee shops. We know where you sleep, where your parents live, where your little sister goes to college." I watched the color drain from their faces. "Mr. Moretti," one of the men said desperately. "We didn't know. We didn't realize that actions have consequences? That investigating a Moretti means putting a target on everyone you love?" Dante circled them slowly. "Now you know. The question is, what do I do with you now that you understand?" The woman looked at me then, really looked at me. "You're Elena Russo, the missing waitress. Are you okay?" Did he hurt you? The concern in her voice was genuine, and something about her caring. Even now, even terrified, made me step forward. I'm fine, I heard myself say. I'm not a victim. The words caught. I'm his daughter. This isn't a kidnapping. It's a family matter. Then why are we tied up? The second man's voice shook. Why are we here? Dante pulled his gun smooth, practiced, terrifying. Because you need to understand something. My daughter's safety is worth more than your lives. Her privacy is worth more than your careers. And if I ever hear about anyone asking questions about Elena Russo again, I won't just threaten your families. He pressed the barrel against the woman's temple. I'll make you watch while I destroy them, piece by piece, starting with whoever you love most. My heart hammered. This was the monster. This was the man my mother had feared, and he was teaching me to become just like him. Dante. My voice came out stronger than I felt. They understand. They're terrified. The message is sent. Is it? He didn't lower the gun. Because I'm not sure it is. I think maybe we need a more permanent solution. Something that ensures their silence. You mean murder? I forced myself to meet his eyes. You're talking about killing them. I'm talking about protecting you. There's a difference. No. I stepped closer, put my hand on his arm, felt the tension vibrating through him. There isn't. And if you kill them, you're proving my mother right. You're proving that power matters more than humanity. That your love is just another form of violence. The warehouse went silent. Dante stared at me, gun still raised, war raging behind his eyes. They could expose you, he said quietly, put you in danger. Then let them sign NDAs. Let them understand the consequences. But don't, my voice cracked, don't make me watch you kill people in my name. Please. If you want to be my father, if you want to be better than the man from 20 years ago, then be better. Right now, choose differently. The moment stretched forever. Then slowly Dante lowered the gun. Get them NDAs, he ordered one of his men. Comprehensive, enforceable. If they breathe a word about my daughter, I own everything they have and everyone they love. He looked at the three journalists. You're getting mercy tonight because Elena asked for it. Remember that. Remember that your lives were worth less than her compassion. And if you ever make me regret this choice, mercy won't come twice. As his men cut them free and ushered them toward waiting lawyers, Dante turned to me. You made me look weak in front of my men. I made you look human, I corrected. There's a difference. In my world, they're the same thing. Then maybe your world needs to change. I held his gaze. I'll learn from you. I'll let you teach me how to survive, but I won't become you. I won't let fear and violence be the only language I speak. Something flickered across his face. Pride, maybe, or grief for the innocence he'd never had. Your mother would have said the same thing, he said softly. She tried to change me too. For a while, I thought she had. What happened? Power happened. Ambition. The belief that the ends justified the means. He looked at the bloodstain on the warehouse floor, old, from some previous lesson taught. I became exactly what she feared. But you, he reached out, hesitated, then gently touched my hair. You're her daughter more than you're mine. You have her strength, her conviction. Maybe that's enough to save us both. Before I could respond, one of his men approached, urgent. Boss, we have a problem. The Calabrese family just made contact. They know about Isabella, and they want to talk. Dante's entire body went rigid. The Calabrese family was destroyed in a war 3 years ago. How? Apparently not entirely. The heir survived. Matteo Calabrese. And he's calling in a debt. The man hesitated. He says the marriage contract is still binding. That Isabella Moretti was promised to him before she was declared dead. Now that she's alive, no. Dante's voice could have cut steel. Absolutely not. He says if you refuse, he'll go public. Expose Isabella to every enemy you've ever made. Put a target on her back that we can't protect her from. I felt the trap closing around us. The marriage contract. The one my mother found. It's still valid in the eyes of the old families. Dante looked like he was being torn apart. Technically, legally, by every tradition our world runs on, you're already promised. Have been since you were 3 years old. Then I unpromised myself. I kept my voice steady despite the panic. Tell this Matteo Calabrese that I don't honor contracts I never signed. It doesn't work that way. A Moretti's word is binding. My word is... He closed his eyes. My word is everything. If I break it now, we'll have war. Not just with the Calabrese, but with every family who's ever sealed a deal on honor and tradition. So you're saying I have to marry a stranger to save your reputation? The hysterical laugh that escaped me was sharp. That's why my mother ran, Dante. That's exactly why. I know. The devastation in his voice was complete. I know. And I'm sorry, and I don't know how to fix this. How to protect you from my own mistakes. I stared at him, this powerful, broken man, who'd just shown mercy because I'd asked, who was now trapped by chains forged decades ago. And I made a decision. Tell Matteo, Calabrese, I'll meet him, I said. But on my terms, in a public place, with no promises made until I decide whether I want to honor a contract I had no part in creating. Elena, I'm a Moretti, right? That name carries power, you said. So let me use it. Let me face this head on instead of running like my mother did. I squared my shoulders, set up the meeting. Let me meet the man I was sold to before I could walk. And then, I met Dante's eyes, saw hope and fear warring there. Then I'll decide whether your word or my freedom matters more. The restaurant was neutral territory, a place neither the Moretti nor Calabrese families controlled. I sat beside Dante in the private room, wearing a black dress that one of his men had delivered that morning. Expensive, elegant, armor disguised as fashion. You don't have to do this, Dante said for the third time. I can find another way. There is no other way. I adjusted the thin gold necklace at my throat, a Moretti family heirloom. He'd given me that morning with trembling hands. Not without war. Not without exposing me to every enemy you've made. You said it yourself, a Moretti's word is binding. I was a fool to make that promise. Yes, you were. I looked at him directly. But we can't change the past. We can only survive it. Before he could respond, the door opened. Matteo Calabrese was not what I expected. I'd built him up in my mind as some kind of monster, old, cruel, everything my mother had feared. Instead, he was maybe 30, with dark hair, sharp cheekbones, and eyes the color of storm clouds, handsome in a dangerous way. He moved with the same predatory grace as Dante, the same aura of barely contained violence. But when his gaze landed on me, something flickered across his face. Surprise. Recognition. Isabella Moretti. He said my name like a prayer, like a curse. 20 years I've thought about meeting you. 20 years wondering what our life would have been like. Elena, I corrected, keeping my voice cold. And we don't have a life. We have a contract signed by men who treated their children like property. A smile tugged at his lips. I like you already. Dante bristled beside me. Careful, Calabrese. That's still my daughter you're speaking to. And my future wife, if the old laws hold. Matteo took the seat across from us, perfectly relaxed. Though I have to say, the reality is far more interesting than the promise. When my father signed that contract, you were a child. I was 11. Neither of us had a choice, so release me from it, I said immediately. If you understand how wrong it was, walk away. Let me live my own life. I would. He leaned forward, and I saw the steel beneath his casual demeanor. If it were just about us. But it's not. That contract was witnessed by every major family, sealed with blood oaths and bound by honor centuries old. If I release you, if we both walk away, we undermine every deal, every alliance, every promise ever made. In our world. Then our world is broken, I snapped. Yes. His agreement surprised me. It absolutely is. But we still live in it. And in this world, Isabella Elena, breaking your father's word would mark both families as faithless. We'd be targets. Fair game. Within a month, we'd be at war with forces you can't even imagine. Dante's hand clenched on the table. There has to be another way. There is. Matteo's eyes never left mine. We honor the contract. Get married. Bind our families the way our fathers intended. Create the peace that was promised. No. The word was out before I could stop it. I won't be sold like cattle. I won't marry a stranger because men I never met decided my future. Then what do you propose? Matteo asked calmly. Because I'm open to suggestions. Believe me, I didn't survive the attack that killed my family just to force an unwilling bride into marriage. But I also won't let my family name be destroyed because we're both too principled to play by. our world's rules. I thought of my mother, of Maria Santoro running, hiding, dying to protect me from exactly this moment. And I thought of the journalists from last night, the way Dante had almost killed them, the way I'd stopped him. Maybe there was a third option, a way to honor the past without sacrificing the future. A year, I said suddenly. Give me a year. Both men looked at me sharply. A year where I gestured between Matteo and myself, where we try, not as strangers forced together, but as two people getting to know each other. Dating, if you can call it that in your world. See if there's anything real beneath the contract. And if there isn't? Matteo asked. If after a year, you still can't stand me? Then we get married anyway, I said, the words tasting like ash. But at least we'll have tried. At least I'll have had a choice in how I got here, even if the destination was always decided. Dante started to protest, but Matteo held up a hand. It's fair. More than fair, actually. You're offering a chance for something real instead of just obligation. I can respect that. There are conditions, I continued, gaining confidence. I continue living with my father. You don't dictate my life, my choices, my freedom. We meet on my terms, in public places, with no expectations beyond getting to know each other. And at the end of the year, if we do marry, it's a partnership, equal, not ownership. Elena. Dante's voice was strained. You don't have to. Yes, I do. I met his eyes. Because if I run, they'll hunt me like they hunted my mother. If we fight, innocent people will die. But if I do this, if I face it head on, maybe I can reshape it into something bearable. Maybe I can be braver than my mother was. Smarter. Matteo studied me with something like admiration. You're not what I expected. Neither are you, I admitted. I expected a monster. Give it time. His smile was dark. You might not be wrong, but... He extended his hand, across the table. I accept your terms. 1 year. Your rules. And at the end, we honor the contract, whatever that looks like by then. I looked at his hand, thought about my mother's fear, my father's guilt, and the little girl in the photos who'd never asked for any of this. Then I reached out and shook. The moment our hands touched, I felt it a spark of something. Not love, not even attraction, but recognition. Like seeing another prisoner in a cell and understanding, wordlessly, that you were both trapped by the same bars. 1 year, I agreed. Starting now. We stayed for dinner awkward, tense, but less hostile than I'd feared. Matteo turned out to be educated, articulate, and darkly funny in a way that surprised me. He'd studied architecture in Italy before the attack that had killed most of his family. He spoke 3 languages. He'd read books I'd loved in college. He was also, unmistakably, dangerous. I saw it in the way his men deferred to him, in the casual mention of cleaning up loose ends in Chicago's South Side, in the scars on his knuckles that spoke of violence dealt and received. He was Dante's world in a younger body, the same deadly charisma, the same absolute certainty that his will would be obeyed, and I'd just agreed to spend a year getting to know him. You handled yourself well, Dante said on the drive back. Better than I would have at your age. I'm terrified, I admitted. Absolutely terrified. But I watched the city lights blur past. But running didn't save my mother. Hiding didn't protect her. Maybe facing it straight on is the only way to survive. Or maybe you'll just get hurt faster. He pulled the car over suddenly, turned to face me. Elena, Isabella, whoever you choose to be, you don't have to sacrifice yourself to fix my mistakes. I'm not sacrificing myself. I'm buying time, trying to turn a prison sentence into, I don't know, something with air in it. I met his desperate gaze. And maybe, just maybe, Matteo, Calabrese isn't the monster we both expected. Maybe he's just another prisoner trying to survive the same broken system. Don't romanticize him. Dante's voice turned hard. I've known his family, known what they're capable of. He might be charming now, but when he doesn't get what he wants, then I'll deal with that when it happens. I surprised myself with the conviction. I'm a Moretti, remember? Your daughter. Which means I'm stronger than you think. Braver than my mother was. And smart enough to know that sometimes the only way out is through. He pulled me into a fierce hug. She would be so proud of you. Your mother. She'd hate that you're in this situation, but she'd be proud of how you're handling it. I let myself sink into the embrace, the first real physical affection I'd accepted from him since learning the truth. He smelled like expensive cologne and old grief. "Find out who killed her?" I whispered against his shoulder. "That's how you fix this. Find out who murdered my mother, and make them pay. Give me that justice at least." "I will." The promise was carved in stone. "I swear it. On everything I am, on every body I've buried, on the daughter I've got back, I will find them, and they will suffer." I believed him. We drove the rest of the way in silence. Back at the penthouse, I found a package waiting on my bed. Inside was a phone, new, expensive, untraceable, and a note in elegant handwriting. "So you can call when you're ready to start our year, or when you need rescuing from your father's overprotection. Whichever comes first. M." I turned the phone over in my hands, feeling the weight of it, the weight of the choice I'd made. Then I noticed something else in the box. A photograph. 2 children, a boy of maybe 11 and a tiny girl of 3, both laughing. The boy was showing the girl something in his hand. A flower, I thought. Or maybe a ring made of grass. The boy was unmistakably Mateo. Young, happy, innocent. And the girl, my breath caught. The girl had a crescent birthmark on her wrist. I flipped the photo over. On the back, in faded ink, "Isabella and Mateo, at the contract signing celebration. May they grow to honor what we have promised today." I had met him before. 20 years ago, at the party that had sealed my fate. I'd met the boy I'd been promised to. And judging by the smile on both our faces, we'd liked each other. Before I knew what our future held. Before violence and fear and death had reshaped everything. I stared at that photo for a long time, trying to remember, trying to reconcile the laughing children with the people we'd become. And I wondered, was it possible? Could we find our way back to something that simple, that innocent? Or were we both too broken by the same world that had stolen our childhoods? My new phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Did you find the photo? I've been carrying it for 20 years, hoping someday I'd get to show you. Hoping you'd remember. M." My hands shook as I typed back. "I don't remember, but I want to." "Is that enough?" The response came immediately. "It's more than enough. It's a beginning. Sleep well, Elena. Tomorrow we start earning our year." I set the phone down and looked at my reflection in the darkened window. Saw my mother's face, my father's eyes, the ghost of a 3-year-old girl who'd smiled at a boy with flowers. And I realized that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just about honoring a contract. Maybe it was about reclaiming something that had been stolen from us both. Or maybe I was already falling for the trap. Only time would tell which truth would win. The call came at 3 in the morning. I jerked awake to the sound of Dante's voice in the hallway, sharp, commanding, lethal. Throwing off the silk sheets, I crept to my door and listened. "Don't care what time it is. Lock down the property. Now. If anyone gets close to this building, I want them dead before they reach the lobby." My blood ran cold. I opened the door to find him standing there, already dressed, gun holster visible beneath his jacket. His face was carved from stone, but his eyes burned with barely controlled rage. "What's happening?" "Vincent escaped." The words were clipped. 2 hours ago. Killed 3 of my men and disappeared into the city. Vincent Russo. The man who'd helped my mother run. The man who might know who'd murdered her. How? Someone helped him. Someone inside my organization. Dante's jaw clenched hard enough to crack teeth. Which means we have a traitor. Someone who's been working against me, possibly for years. Someone who knew about the phone call 20 years ago and is now tying up loose ends. "Elena?" A new voice made me turn. Mateo stood at the elevator entrance, flanked by his own men. He'd shed the charm from last night, replaced by cold calculation. I came as soon as I heard. "Why?" I asked, confused. "Why would you?" "Because, if there's a traitor in your father's organization, they're likely connected to the same people who murdered my family 3 years ago." His storm gray eyes met mine. "And because you're in danger, which means our arrangement is in danger, which means I have a vested interest in keeping you alive." How romantic. Dante moved toward me, his hand closing gently on my shoulder. "Pack a bag. Light. Just essentials. Mateo's right, you can't stay here if we have a leak. Every safe house, every property, every location my people know about is compromised until we root out the traitor." "So where am I supposed to go?" The 2 men exchanged a look. Some silent communication passed between them, years of mutual respect born from opposing sides of the same bloody world. "With me," Matteo said finally. "My properties aren't in Dante's system. The traitor won't know to look there. You'll be safe while we clean house." "Absolutely not." The refusal was instant. "I'm not letting my daughter disappear with a Calabrese. She's not disappearing. She's being protected." Matteo's voice remained infuriatingly calm. "And need I remind you that she's my promised bride? Protecting her isn't just courtesy, it's obligation." "I'm standing right here," I snapped, silencing them both. "And I can make my own decisions." But I looked at Dante, saw the war raging behind his eyes. "He's right. If there's a traitor, staying here makes me a target. Going to one of your known properties makes me bait. Matteo's the only logical choice. Elena. Unless you'd rather I check into a hotel under a fake name and hope no one notices?" I crossed my arms. "Because that's my other option. You can't protect me from ghosts in your own organization, Dante. Not until you know who they are." The admission seemed to cost him everything. But slowly, he nodded. "2 conditions. First, you stay in constant contact. I want updates every 4 hours or I'm burning Chicago to the ground looking for you. Second, he turned to Matteo with murder in his eyes. You keep your hands off her. Arrangement or not, she's my daughter first. Your promised bride second. Remember that before you get ideas." Matteo's smile was all edges. "Noted. Though technically the contract says, I don't give a damn what the contract says." Dante stepped closer, voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "You want her? Earn her trust in that year you negotiated. But if you so much as touch her without consent, arrangement or not, I will gut you from throat to groin and mail the pieces to what's left of your family. Gentlemen," I stepped between them before violence could erupt. "Can we table the territorial display until after I'm not in immediate danger?" Matteo's expression softened slightly when he looked at me. "Go pack. We leave in 10 minutes. My property is 2 hours north, remote enough to be secure, close enough to respond if Dante's hunt turns up leads." The estate was beautiful, in a Gothic way. Old stone, surrounded by dense forest, with enough land that you couldn't see another building from any window. Security was visible, but discreet cameras, high fences, men patrolling the tree line, a fortress disguised as a home. Matteo led me inside, through rooms filled with expensive furniture and artwork that should have felt welcoming, but somehow just emphasized how alone we were. "Guest room is upstairs," he said, carrying my single bag like it weighed nothing. "Ensuite bathroom, locks on the inside of the door. I'm at the end of the hall if you need anything, but I won't." He paused on the stairs, turning to look at me. "I won't presume. Your father's threat aside, you asked for a year to decide. I intend to honor that. Thank you." The gratitude felt strange but genuine. He showed me to a room that was somehow both luxurious and comfortable, all soft grays and whites, with a massive bed and windows overlooking the dark forest. Like something from a fairy tale. The kind where the girl doesn't know if the beast is her salvation or her doom. "Try to sleep," Matteo said from the doorway. "I have men watching every approach. You're safe here." "Am I?" I turned to face him fully. Safe with the man I was sold to? The heir to a family as dangerous as my father's? The stranger I'm supposed to marry in a year? No. His honesty caught me off guard. "You're probably not safe at all, but you're safer than you would be anywhere else right now. And that's the best I can offer." He started to leave, then stopped. "The photo I sent, the one of us as children, did it mean anything to you?" I thought about lying, about keeping distance between us, but something in his expression, vulnerability beneath the dangerous exterior, made me answer truthfully. It made me wonder who we could have been. If we'd grown up knowing each other, if we'd been allowed to choose. We were happy that day. He leaned against the doorframe, and for a moment, I saw past the Mafia air, to something younger, something broken. The adults were inside signing papers, binding our futures, and we were in the garden. "You asked me to make you a crown from flowers. Said you wanted to be a princess." I caught my breath. "You remember that?" "I remember everything about that day. You were wearing a white dress with strawberries on it. You had chocolate on your face from the cake. And when I gave you the flower crown, you kissed my cheek and told me you'd marry me when you grew up because I was nice." His smile was sad. We were innocent. We thought arranged marriages were romantic, like a fairy tale. And then reality happened. He agreed. "Your mother ran. My family was attacked. We both learned that fairy tales in our world are written in blood, not ink. Silence hung between us, heavy with the weight of 2 decades and all the innocence we'd lost. I don't know if I can love you, I said quietly. I don't know if I can even like you. You represent everything I should hate, the prison my mother ran from, the fate she died trying to spare me. I know. He pushed off the doorframe, preparing to leave. But I'm hoping that over the next year, you'll see that I'm not the enemy. I'm just another person trapped by the same broken system, trying to survive it, trying maybe to reshape it into something less monstrous. By marrying someone who doesn't love you, by marrying someone who might learn to. He met my eyes, and I saw something genuine there, something that looked dangerously like hope. Good night, Elena. Lock your door. Not because I don't trust myself, but because you shouldn't trust anyone in this world, not even me. He closed the door softly behind him. I stood alone in the beautiful room, listening to his footsteps fade down the hallway, and realized with creeping horror that I'd felt drawn to him in that moment. To his honesty, his brokenness, the way he understood intimately what it felt like to be a pawn in someone else's game. My phone buzzed. A text from Dante. Made it okay? Say the word and I extract you. Traitor or not, you're my priority. I typed back. I'm fine. He's been respectful. Focus on finding Vincent and whoever helped him escape. I'm safe here. But was I? Safe from violence, maybe. From immediate physical danger. But safe from the magnetic pull I'd felt standing close to Matteo? Safe from the dangerous possibility that the trap I'd negotiated might actually be something I'd choose? I locked the door like he'd suggested. Then I lay awake in the darkness, listening to the wind in the trees and wondering if my mother had felt this same conflict, loving someone she should fear, fearing someone she wanted to love. And I wondered if that fatal contradiction was what had killed her in the end. Outside my window, I saw a shadow move between the trees. Security, I told myself. But my hand reached for my phone, ready to call either my father or the man sleeping down the hall. Both monsters, both offering protection. And I still didn't know which one would destroy me first. Morning came with the smell of coffee and something burning. I found Matteo in the kitchen, swearing at a smoking pan while trying to scrape what might have once been eggs onto a plate. I'm a terrible cook, he announced without turning around. Fair warning before you commit to a year of this. Despite everything, the danger, the fear, the absurdity of my situation, I laughed. Actually laughed. You run a criminal empire but can't manage breakfast? I have people for breakfast. Usually. He finally turned, and I saw the frustration on his face. I thought it might be nice to make you something myself instead of having staff do it. Prove I'm not completely useless at normal human things. The gesture was unexpectedly sweet, disarming, dangerous. I can cook, I offered, moving toward the stove. If you promise not to tell my father I'm playing house with you. Deal. He stepped aside, letting me take over. Though, for the record, we're not playing house. We're surviving a crisis, while attempting to fulfill an archaic contract through semi-civilized means. How romantic. I salvaged what I could of his eggs, started fresh with new ones. Tell me about your family. The one you lost. His silence stretched long enough that I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, my father was hard. Fair, but hard. He believed in the old ways: honor, respect, blood for blood. My mother was softer. She used to sneak me books about architecture, encourage me to dream about building beautiful things instead of just destroying. His voice went rough. They killed her first, made my father watch. Then they killed him. My 2 brothers, even the staff who'd been with us for decades. But not you, but not me. He leaned against the counter, watching me cook with an intensity that had nothing to do with breakfast. I was at university. Got a call from someone still. I don't know who, telling me not to come home, that it was a trap. By the time I got back, everyone was dead and the property was burned to the ground. How did you survive after that? The same way anyone survives in our world. I got angry, got smart, tracked down allies, rebuilt what I could of my father's empire, and waited. Waited for the right moment to either get revenge or rebuild something better. His gray eyes held mine, and then I heard that Isabella Moretti, the girl I'd been promised to 20 years ago, was suddenly alive. And I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the chance to reshape everything. I plated the eggs, toast, bacon. Simple breakfast made in a kitchen that probably cost more than my college tuition. So I'm what? Your redemption arc? The way you rebuild your family's legacy? No. He took the plate I offered, our fingers brushing briefly. The contact sent electricity up my arm. You're the chance to create something new instead of just avenging. Something old. The chance to honor the contract in a way that doesn't require either of us to sacrifice our humanity. And if I still can't love you after a year, then we'll be married business partners with mutual respect instead of passionate lovers. He shrugged. I've seen worse foundations for a mafia marriage. At least we're starting honest. My phone rang before I could respond. Dante's name flashed on the screen. Any news? I answered immediately. Vincent's dead. Dante's voice was flat. Hard. They found his body an hour ago in an alley on the south side. Single gunshot to the head. Execution style. My knees went weak. Mateo was there instantly, hand on my elbow, steadying me. I let him. Someone silenced him, I managed, before he could tell us who helped him escape, who killed my mother, or before he could reveal something else, something bigger. Dante's fury bled through the phone. I'm bringing in everyone, every soldier, every associate, every person who's been in my organization for more than 10 years. Someone's going to break. Dante, I'll be careful, but Elena, he paused, be ready. When I find the traitor, when I find out who's been playing me all these years, it's going to get bloody. Chicago's going to burn before this is over. The line went dead. Mateo was still holding my elbow, his thumb moving in small, unconscious circles on my skin. Comforting, grounding. Your father's going to start a war, he said quietly. I know. He's going to kill everyone even remotely suspected until someone confesses. I know. And we're going to be trapped in the middle of it, because you're his daughter and my promised bride, which makes us targets for whoever's been working against him. I know. I pulled away from his touch, wrapped my arms around myself. So what do? We investigate on our own. He moved to a laptop on the kitchen table, opened it with practiced ease. Your father's too emotional, too close to Monet. This. He'll be thorough but sloppy. We can be surgical. How? Because I've been tracking the same shadows he has. The attack on my family 3 years ago, it was too precise, too well-timed. Someone knew our defenses, our schedules, our vulnerabilities. Someone who had inside information. My heart picked up speed. You think the same person? I think there's been a puppet master playing multiple families against each other for years, creating chaos, eliminating threats, consolidating power. He pulled up files, photographs, documents, police reports. Look at the pattern. Your mother and you disappeared 20 years ago. My family is attacked 3 years ago. Vincent escapes and is executed within hours. Someone's been orchestrating this. Someone with access to everyone's secrets. I studied the screen, mind racing. Someone who benefits from keeping families at war with each other. Someone who... I stopped cold. Oh God. What? The marriage contract. Between you and me, it was supposed to create peace between our families, right? End decades of conflict? Yes. Mateo's eyes narrowed. So? So someone made my mother disappear before that peace could fully take hold. Someone attacked your family years later, right when you were old enough to take control and make that alliance real. And now someone's killing witnesses and creating chaos right when we're trying to honor the contract. Someone who doesn't want our families united. His voice was ice. Someone who's been profiting from the conflict, playing both sides. We stared at each other, the implications settling like lead in our stomachs. We need to tell Dante, I said. No. Mateo caught my wrist, the one with the birthmark, his thumb tracing it absently. If we're right, the traitor is someone high up in his organization, someone he trusts completely. If we tip our hand too early, they'll disappear. Or worse, they'll strike first. So what do? We work the problem. Together. He pulled up more files. I have contacts your father doesn't. People who owe me favors. People who've been watching Chicago's underworld for decades. We reach out quietly, gather evidence, and when we're certain, when we can prove it beyond doubt, then we bring it to Dante. That's dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous, Elena. But at least this way, we control the narrative. He turned to face me fully, intensity burning in his storm-gray eyes. Your mother died trying to protect you from this world. Vincent died before he could reveal the truth. We're the only ones left who can see the pattern, who can stop whoever's been orchestrating this nightmare. And if we're wrong, if we investigate and find nothing, then we've wasted time but lost nothing. His hand slid from my wrist to my palm, fingers intertwining with mine. But if we're right, if we can expose the traitor and end this cycle of violence, then maybe we can create the peace that contract was always supposed to bring. Maybe we can honor our parents' intentions in a way that doesn't require either of us to be sacrificed. I looked at our joined hands, thought about the little girl in the photograph, smiling at a boy with flowers, thought about my mother, running in fear, about Mateo's family, slaughtered in their own home, thought about all the ways love and violence had twisted together in this world until they were indistinguishable. Okay, I said. We investigate. Together. But if this gets too dangerous, if whoever's behind this comes after us, then we fight. His smile was sharp and dark. Because we're both children of Mafia families, Elena. Victims of the same system. But that also means we're survivors. Fighters. And we're smarter than whoever's been playing games with our lives. He raised our joined hands, pressed a kiss to my knuckles, formal, old-fashioned, respectful. But the touch burned. And I realized with dawning horror that somewhere between breakfast and murder, plots, I'd started trusting Mateo Calabrese. Started seeing him not as my prison but as my partner, which was either the smartest thing I'd ever done or the most catastrophic mistake of my life. My phone buzzed with a text from Dante. Stay alert. Trust no one. I mean it, Elena, no one. Not Mateo, not his men, not anyone who seems helpful. The traitor could be anywhere. I looked at Mateo, who was pulling up more files, his face set with determination as he worked to unravel the conspiracy that had destroyed both our families. And I wondered if my father's warning had come too late, because I was already trusting the devil I'd been promised to. And God help me, I thought I might be falling for him too. 3 days of investigation had yielded one name, Marcus DeLuca, Dante's second in command, his most trusted advisor, the man who'd been at his side for 15 years, the man who'd been conveniently absent the night Maria and Isabella Moretti had disappeared. It's circumstantial, I said, staring at the evidence spread across Mateo's study. We can't prove he was involved. Not yet. Mateo highlighted another document. But look at the financial records I pulled. 3 days after your mother disappeared, DeLuca made a deposit of $50,000 into an offshore account. No explanation. No paper trail. That could be anything. Gambling winnings, a side deal. And 3 weeks after my family was attacked, he bought a property in the Cayman Islands. Cash. Through a shell corporation. Mateo's jaw clenched. He's been profiting from our family's misery, from keeping us divided. I wanted to deny it, wanted to believe there was another explanation. But the evidence kept mounting small details that individually meant nothing but together painted a damning picture. Marcus DeLuca, the man Dante trusted more than anyone, the one who'd have access to every secret, every plan, every vulnerability, the perfect traitor. We need to tell my father. I reached for my phone. Mateo's hand closed over mine. Not yet. Think about it, Elena. If we tell Dante now, with only circumstantial evidence, DeLuca will disappear. Or worse, he'll strike first. Kill Dante before we can prove anything. We need the power cut out. Total darkness swallowed the estate. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then Mateo was pulling me against him, his body a solid wall between me and the door, his hand going to the gun I hadn't known he was carrying. Stay behind me, he whispered. Don't move until I know. Gunfire erupted from downstairs. Shouts. The sound of bodies hitting the floor. Bedroom, Mateo ordered. Already moving. There's a safe room. Reinforced steel. You can... I'm not leaving you. Elena. I said, I'm not leaving. I grabbed a paperweight from his desk. Heavy crystal, sharp edges. Not a gun, but better than nothing. We're in this together, remember? His eyes met mine in the darkness, lit only by emergency, lighting kicking in dimly. Something passed between us, understanding, trust, something dangerously close to love. Stay close then. Do exactly what I say. He moved toward the door, professional and deadly. And if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments. More gunfire. Closer now. The sound of footsteps on the stairs. Mateo positioned us behind his desk, gun trained on the door. I crouched beside him, heart hammering, paperweight clutched in my sweating palm. The door burst open. Marcus DeLuca stood there, flanked by 6 armed men, and behind them Vincent Russo, alive, very much not executed. Surprise, DeLuca said with a smile that never reached his eyes. Did you really think I'd be stupid enough to let Vincent die before he'd served his purpose? My blood turned to ice. You staged his death. Had to. Your father was getting too close. Asking too many questions. Needed to make him think the traitor had panicked and eliminated the witness. DeLuca stepped into the room, casual and confident. But Vincent here, well, he's been very useful, very cooperative, especially after I reminded him what happens to people who don't cooperate. Vincent looked older, beaten. There was fresh bruising on his face. I'm sorry, he said, meeting my eyes. I tried to protect you, tried to keep you hidden like your mother wanted. But nothing lasts forever, DeLuca interrupted. Secrets always come out. And your little reunion with Dante, well, that accelerated my timeline considerably. Matteo's gun never wavered. What timeline? The one where I eliminate both the Moretti and Calabrese heirs and take control of their territories. DeLuca gestured expansively. 30 years I've been planning this. 30 years of careful manipulation, getting Maria Santoro to run by feeding her rumors of Dante's brutality, arranging the attack on the Calabrese family, keeping your families at war while I consolidated power in the shadows. You killed my mother. My voice was surprisingly steady. You cut her brake lines when she tried to come back. She was going to ruin everything. The facade cracked, showing rage beneath. 20 years of work, and she was going to waltz back into Dante's life, reconcile, and create the very peace I'd spent decades preventing. So yes, I killed her, and I'd do it again. Matteo moved slightly, positioning himself more completely in front of me. You won't leave this room alive. Neither will you, Calabrese. Neither will the girl. DeLuca raised his hand, signaling his men. Kill them both. Make it messy. We'll make it look like a lover's quarrel gone wrong. Star-crossed heirs who couldn't overcome their family's hatred. Time slowed. Matteo fired first 3 shots, 3 of DeLuca's men dropping. But there were too many. Return fire shattered the windows behind us, tore through the desk we were hiding behind. Run! Matteo shouted, providing covering fire. Elena, run! But I couldn't. Couldn't leave him to die alone. Couldn't run like my mother had run. So I threw the paperweight. It caught DeLuca in the temple solid, brutal. He went down hard, blood streaming from the wound. In the chaos that followed, Matteo took out 2 more gunmen. Vincent grabbed a fallen weapon and turned on his captors. And then Dante's voice cut through the violence like a blade. Freeze! He stood in the doorway with 20 armed men, all weapons trained on the scene. His eyes found me first, checking for injuries, for fear, for life. Then they found DeLuca, struggling to stand, blood on his face. Marcus. Dante's voice could have flash-frozen hell. My brother, my friend, my most trusted advisor. He stepped over bodies, moving with lethal grace. How long? Since the beginning. DeLuca laughed, the sound broken and bitter. Since you were stupid enough to trust me. Since you were weak enough to fall in love with a woman who'd question your choices. Since you were fool enough to think you could have peace and power both. Dante's gun rose. You killed my wife. I freed you from her. She was making you soft, questioning the marriage alliance, questioning everything we'd built. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. DeLuca fell backward, a hole in his chest, his eyes wide with shock. Dante stood over him, gun still raised, tears streaming down his face. You killed my wife. You stole 20 years with my daughter. You destroyed the Calabrese family. And for what? Power you'll never get to enjoy? He fired again, and again, and again, until the gun clicked empty and DeLuca was very definitely dead. Silence fell like a shroud. Then Dante's eyes found mine. Are you hurt? No. My voice shook. Matteo, he protected me. Dante's gaze shifted to Matteo, who was bleeding from a shoulder wound but still standing, still positioned between me and danger. For a long moment, the 2 men stared at each other. Past enemies, future family. Thank you, Dante said finally, the words seemingly costing him everything. For protecting my daughter. Matteo nodded once, respect acknowledged. She protected me too. Took down DeLuca with a paperweight. Your daughter's a fighter. Something like pride flickered across Dante's face. She's her mother's daughter. I moved then not toward my father but toward Matteo, whose shoulder was bleeding steadily. You're hurt. I'm fine. but he swayed slightly. "You're not fine." I pressed my hand against the wound, feeling his blood hot and sticky against my palm. "You got shot protecting me. You could have died. Worth it." His gray eyes held mine, intense despite the pain. Every second of it was worth it. And suddenly I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the weight of everything, the danger, the fear, the realization that this man I'd been promised to had just put his life on the line for mine without hesitation. "Elena," Dante's voice was uncertain. "We need to get you both medical attention. Get you somewhere safe." "I am safe." The words came out stronger than I'd meant. "Right here. With him." I watched the realization hit Dante, watched him understand what I'd only just admitted to myself. I'd chosen. In the middle of violence and blood and chaos, I'd chosen. Not the prison of an arranged marriage, not the obligation of a contract signed when I was 3, but the man who'd stood between me and bullets, who'd trusted me to fight beside him, who'd seen me as a partner instead of property. "The year isn't up," Dante said quietly. "I know." I didn't look away from Matteo. "But I don't need a year. I don't need time to decide whether I can love someone who sees me as an equal, who risks everything to keep me safe, who's been just as trapped by this contract as I have." Matteo's hand came up to cover mine where it pressed against his wound. "Elena, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to. That's the point." I smiled through tears I hadn't known I was crying. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing, not running from a choice, not accepting a choice made for me, actually choosing. "You're choosing him?" Dante's voice cracked. "The man you were forced to. I'm choosing the man who made me breakfast even though he can't cook, who's been investigating my mother's murder for days without rest, who handed me a gun instead of locking me in a tower." I finally looked at my father. I'm choosing the person who sees me as Elena and Isabella both, who understands what it's like to be a prisoner of this world while trying to reshape it into something bearable. Silence. Then Matteo spoke, his voice rough with pain and something else. Something vulnerable. "The contract said 1 year. I don't care about the contract." I leaned closer, my forehead resting against his uninjured shoulder. "I care about this. About us. About building something real instead of just honoring something obligated." His arms came around me, careful of his injury, but solid, safe. "Then we have time. Time to court you properly. Time to earn this instead of just accepting it. We have forever." I pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "If you want it. I've wanted it since I was 11 years old and made you a flower crown." His smile was soft, real, devastating. "I just never imagined you'd choose to want it too." Dante cleared his throat, and we both remembered we weren't alone. "I suppose..." He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. "I suppose this is the peace the contract was meant to bring, just not in the way anyone expected." "The best kind of peace," Matteo agreed. "Earned, not enforced." My father studied us for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Then you have my blessing, both of you, but..." His voice turned to steel. "Matteo Calabrese, if you ever hurt my daughter, contract or not, I will end you in ways that make tonight look merciful. Understood?" Matteo's respect was genuine. "Though fair warning, if I hurt her, she'll probably end me herself before you get the chance." Despite everything, the bodies, the blood, the revelations, I laughed. "Damn right I will." And in that moment, surrounded by violence and death, and the ghosts of our pasts, I felt something I'd never expected to feel in this world. Hope. 6 months later, I stood in the garden where that photograph had been taken 23 years ago. The Moretti estate had been restored not to its former glory, but to something new, something that honored the past while embracing a different future. Roses bloomed everywhere, red and white intertwined, like the families they represented. "You look beautiful." Matteo's voice came from behind me, sending warmth cascading down my spine, the same warmth I felt every time I heard him now, though I might be biased. I turned to find him in a tailored suit, his shoulder fully healed from that night 6 months ago, the night everything had changed. "You clean up well yourself, Calabrese. It's our wedding day." "I'd hope so." He moved closer, his hand settling on my waist with familiar ease. "Second thoughts?" "None." I rose on my toes to kiss him soft, sweet, real. "You? Only that I wish your mother could see this. See you. See that her sacrifice wasn't in vain." My throat tightened. In the months since DeLuca's death, We'd uncovered the full scope of his betrayal. The years of manipulation, the lives destroyed, the families torn apart. But we'd also found Maria Santoro's journals hidden in that safety deposit box, finally located and opened. Pages and pages of her thoughts, her fears, her desperate hope that somehow, someday, her daughter would be free to choose her own path. "I'm running not because I don't love him," she'd written, "but because I love Isabella more. More than my husband. More than the life we built. More than the contract that would steal her choices before she's old enough to understand what choice means. If there's any chance, any hope that she can have, better than this world of blood and obligation, then every sacrifice is worth it." "She'd be proud," Dante said, joining us in the garden. He'd aged in the past 6 months, grief and guilt carving deeper lines in his face. But he'd also softened, spent time with me, told me stories about my mother, tried, in his broken way, to be the father I'd never had. We weren't perfect. We fought. We struggled with the weight of our shared past. But we were trying. "She'd be proud of you too," I told him, "for letting me choose. I didn't let you do anything." But his smile was genuine. "You chose despite me, despite the contract, despite every reason to run like she did. You stayed and fought and somehow convinced a Calabrese heir to fall in love with you in the process." I think I convinced myself to fall in love with him first. I looked at Matteo, found him already watching me with that intensity that still made my heart skip. Somewhere between murder investigations and burnt breakfast. The wedding was small, intimate, none of the grand Mafia spectacle our fathers would have once demanded. Just close family, loyal friends, and the people who'd helped us survive. Vincent Russo was there, pardoned by both families for his role in protecting me, even if his methods had been flawed. He'd wept when I'd asked him to walk me down the aisle alongside Dante. 2 fathers, in different ways, both trying to atone for the past. When the ceremony began, I carried 2 bouquets, one traditional, elegant, pure white, the other a crown of wildflowers, exactly like the one Matteo had made me as a child. Imperfect, wild, chosen rather than arranged. I, Elena Isabella Moretti. The name still felt strange, but I was learning to wear both identities. Take you, Matteo Calabrese, not because a contract says I must, but because I choose to. Because you've shown me that love in this world doesn't have to be violence. That it can be partnership, choice, growth. His voice was rough. When he responded, "I, Matteo Calabrese, take you, Elena, not as a bride promised, but as a partner chosen, not as obligation, but as privilege. And I promise to honor both who you were and who you're becoming, to protect your right to choose, even when those choices terrify me." When we kissed, I tasted salt. His tears are mine. I wasn't sure. Didn't matter. The reception was held in the same ballroom where the original contract had been signed, but we'd transformed it, covered the dark wood and heavy drapes with light, with flowers, with photographs of both our families, the ones lost, the ones remaining, the future we were building. Dante gave a toast, his voice breaking as he spoke about Maria, about Isabella, about the daughter he'd mourned, and the woman she'd become. "She's stronger than both of us ever were," he said, raising his glass to me. "Braver than her mother, smarter than her father, and proof that maybe this world can produce something beautiful after all." Later, as we danced, Matteo whispered against my hair, "Do you regret it? Giving up your old life?" Elena Russo could have disappeared, started over somewhere far from all this darkness. Elena Russo was always living a lie. I leaned back to look at him. Isabella Moretti is who I really am. But more than that, I'm the person I've become since that night in the restaurant. The one who stopped running, who faced the darkness and decided to bring her own light. And the contract, the arrangement, became irrelevant the moment we chose each other. I smiled. The contract was about power, politics, obligation. This us is about love, partnership, building something new from broken pieces. His arms tightened around me. "I love you, not the girl I was promised, not the heir I was supposed to marry. You, the woman who threw a paperweight at a killer and looked at a mafia boss and said, 'Teach me to survive your world.' I love you too." The words felt like freedom, like choice made, manifest. The man who made me breakfast, who investigated my mother's murder, who saw me as an equal when I'd been taught to be afraid. We danced until the stars came out, until the guests filtered away, until it was just us in the garden, surrounded by roses and moonlight and the ghosts of our pasts. Your mother's journal, Matteo said softly. The last entry. Did you read it? I had. The night before the wedding, alone in my room, I'd read her final words. Isabella, my darling star, if you're reading this, then I failed to protect you from this world. Or perhaps I succeeded, and you survived to find your way back. Either way, know this. I never regretted loving your father, even when I had to leave him. I never regretted having you, even when it meant running forever. And I would never regret the choices I made, even if they cost me everything. But I hope, God, how I hope that you get the one thing I never had, the thing I tried to give you by running. Choice. The freedom to decide your own path, your own love, your own future, whether that's in this world or beyond it. Whether that's with a man you were promised to or one you discover yourself. Whatever you choose, my star, choose it fully, bravely, without apology. And if you do find yourself back in the world I ran from, if you end up honoring that contract after all, make sure it's on your terms. Make sure it's love, not obligation. Partnership, not property. Make sure your father, your real father, not the man I ran from, but the man I hope he became, understands that you are not a bargaining chip. You are a force. A fighter. My greatest gift to a world that desperately needs more light. I love you, Isabella. In this life, and whatever comes after, and I'm so sorry I couldn't stay to watch you shine. I read it, I told Matteo, blinking back tears, and I think she'd be okay with how this turned out. With me choosing you. With us reshaping the contract into something worth honoring. She'd be proud. He kissed my forehead, gentle and reverent. Just like I'm proud. Just like your father is. Even if he struggles to show it. You took a prison and made it a partnership. Took an obligation and transformed it into love. We stood in the garden where it had all begun, a photograph of children who didn't know their futures were already decided. Where a boy had given a girl flowers and she'd promised to marry him. Innocent and unknowing. 20 years later, in the same garden, we'd made that promise real. But this time with full knowledge. Full choice. Full hearts. Come on, I said, taking his hand. Let's go start our forever. He pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine. Our forever. God, I like the sound of that. Me too. I smiled against his lips. Even if it's going to be complicated and dangerous, and probably involve more murder attempts than the average marriage. Especially because of that. His laugh was warm. Real. We're not a fairy tale, Elena. We're something better. Something earned. We walked back toward the house. Our house now. A merger of the Moretti and Calabrese estates into something new. Behind us, the roses swayed in the night breeze, red and white petals falling like confetti. Inside, Dante waited in his study, a glass of whiskey in hand, and that shrine to Maria, still covering the wall. But now there were new photos added, me and him, awkward at first, then gradually more comfortable, learning to be father and daughter after 20 years apart. Leaving already? He asked, though his tone was teasing. We have a honeymoon to start. Matteo's hand never left mine. 2 weeks in Italy, away from Chicago, from families, from all of this. Good. Dante stood, moved toward us with the careful grace of a predator trying not to startle prey. You've earned it. Both of you. He looked at me, and I saw love there. Complicated, broken, but genuine. Your mother would have loved him, you know. Matteo. She always said the Calabrese heir had kind eyes, even as a boy. Said maybe the contract wasn't the prison she'd feared. Why didn't she come back then? The question I'd been afraid to ask. If she thought it might be okay. Because DeLuca was in my ear by then, feeding her messages through Vincent, telling her I'd become worse, more violent, more dangerous, that the marriage would trap you in darkness. His jaw clenched. And I had become worse. After losing you both, I became exactly the monster he convinced her I was. Self-fulfilling prophecy. But you're better now. I stepped forward, hugged him, still awkward, still learning, but real. You're choosing to be better. Because of you. His arms came around me tight and desperate. Because I got a second chance I don't deserve. And I'm not wasting it. When we pulled apart, there were tears in his eyes. In mine. Go, he said gruffly. Be happy. Be safe. And Elena, he caught my hand, pressed something into it. A key. This opens a safety deposit box in Florence. Your mother left it there, years ago. I only just found the records. Whatever's inside, it's yours. the last piece of her she left behind. My fingers closed around the key, metal warm from his hand. Thank you. Thank your husband. Dante's smile was sad. He's the one who found the trail. Spent months tracking down every place Maria might have hidden something. He wanted you to have all of her, not just the fragments I could give you. I turned to Matteo, who looked slightly embarrassed. You never told me. I wanted it to be a wedding gift, a piece of your mother you could keep, something DeLuca hadn't destroyed. He touched my face, gentle. You deserve to know all of her, the woman she was before fear changed her. The love I felt in that moment was almost overwhelming. This man who'd been patient through my fear, my anger, my grief, who'd investigated my mother's murder while courting me, who'd stood between me and bullets without hesitation. This man I'd been promised to as a child and chosen as an adult. I love you, I whispered. More than I knew I could love anyone. I know. His smile was soft, devastating. I feel the same way. Every single day. Florence was beautiful. We spent 2 weeks wandering ancient streets, eating too much pasta, and pretending we were normal people on a normal honeymoon. No guns. No bodyguards hovering visibly. Just 2 people learning to be married. On the last day, we went to the bank my mother had used. The safety deposit box was small, unassuming. Inside, we found 3 things. A letter addressed to me, a photograph of my parents on their wedding day, young, happy, untouched by tragedy, and a ring, simple gold band with a tiny diamond. Her wedding ring. I opened the letter with shaking hands. My darling Isabella, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. And somehow you've found your way to the truth. I hope Dante is the one who brought you here. I hope he became the man I always knew he could be, beneath the violence and the power. I want you to know, I never stopped loving him. Never. Even when I ran. Even when I hid you from him. Even when I died, and if you're reading this, I must be dead, because I would never have left this ring behind if I was still alive to wear it. I ran because I was afraid. Afraid of who he might become. Afraid of the contract he'd made. Afraid that loving him meant sacrificing your future. And maybe I was right. Maybe I saved you from something terrible. Or maybe I was wrong. Maybe I stole years you could have had with your father. Maybe I let fear make decisions that love should have made. I'll never know. But you will. If you've found love, real love, chosen love, then honor it. Even if it's in the world I tried to protect you from. Even if it's with the boy you were promised to all those years ago. Love is worth fighting for. Worth staying for. Worth building a life around. Even when that life is dangerous. I ran. But maybe you're braver than I was. Maybe you can create the peace I couldn't. Maybe you can love without fear in a way I never learned. The ring is yours now. Wear it or don't. Keep it or give it away. But know that when I wore it, I was happy. Truly happy. And I hope, God, how I hope that you find that same happiness, whatever form it takes. I love you, my star, to the moon and back, across every lifetime, through every choice and consequence. Forever your mother, Maria. I was crying by the end. Matteo held me, let me soak his shirt with tears, while the Florence sunshine streamed through the bank windows. She wanted you to be happy, he said softly. More than safe, more than protected. Happy. I am. I pulled back, wiping my eyes. Even though it's complicated and dangerous and nothing like what she probably imagined for me, I'm happy. Good. He took the ring from the box, studied it. May I? I nodded, not sure what he meant. He slipped it onto my right hand, the one without. My wedding ring. So you can carry both. The love she had and the love we're building, past and future together. I looked at my hands. Left ring finger, the diamond and platinum band Matteo had given me. Right ring finger, my mother's simple gold. 2 loves, 2 stories. 2 versions of choosing to stay despite the danger. Perfect, I whispered. We left Florence the next day, returning to Chicago and all its complications. But something had shifted. The past had been honored. The ghosts had been laid to rest. And the future, our future stretched ahead with all its terrifying possibility. Epilogue. 1 year later, the baby's cry echoed through the Moretti Calabrese estate at 3 a.m. I stumbled out of bed, exhausted but smiling, and found Matteo already lifting our daughter from her crib. Shh. Stellina, he murmured, The Italian endearment my mother had called me now passed to the next generation. You're safe. We've got you. Maria Isabella Calabrese, named for both. Her grandmother's quieted immediately in her father's arms. She had my dark hair, his gray eyes, and a tiny crescent birthmark on her wrist. Hereditary. Rare. Beautiful. She's going to be trouble, I said, leaning against the doorframe. Absolutely. Matteo looked up, and the love in his expression still took my breath away. She's got your stubbornness and my family's tendency toward chaos. We're doomed. But at least she'll have a choice. I moved closer, touching our daughter's soft hair. About who she becomes, who she loves, what kind of life she wants. Because of you, he shifted Maria so I could hold her. Because you chose to stay and fight instead of run. Because you transformed a prison into a partnership. Because you're raising her in a world that's still dark, still dangerous, but maybe a little bit better than the one we inherited. I looked down at my daughter, this tiny person who'd never asked to be born into the Mafia world, who carried the weight of two families' legacies in her DNA and made a silent promise. You'll have choices. You'll have love. You'll have parents who chose each other, not ones who were forced together. And if you want to leave this world someday, we'll help you. If you want to stay and change it from within, we'll teach you. But it will be your choice. Always. Dante appeared in the doorway, unable to sleep without checking on his granddaughter. He'd softened even more since Maria's birth, this ruthless Mafia boss reduced to making silly faces and singing off-key lullabies. Can't sleep either? I asked. I keep thinking about all the nights I missed with you. His voice was rough. All the times you cried and I wasn't there to comfort you. But this time, he looked at Maria, and tears shone in his eyes. This time I get to be here, get to watch her grow, get to be the grandfather I never got to be a father. You're a good grandfather, Matteo said, surprising us both. And a good ally. The peace we've built, between our families it's holding. No wars, no betrayals, just cooperation. Because of her. Dante gestured to me. She chose love over fear, taught us all that it was possible. I looked around at my strange, broken, beautiful family. A Mafia boss learning to be a grandfather. A rival heir who'd become my husband. A daughter born from a contract but raised in choice. And I thought about my mother, Maria Santoro, who'd run to protect me, who'd died trying to give me freedom, who'd never known that her sacrifice would lead here, to this moment. I hope you can see this, Mom, I thought. I hope you know I found my way. Not out of your world, but through it. Not by running, but by staying. Not by fearing love, but by choosing it. I hope you're proud. Maria yawned, tiny and perfect, already drifting back to sleep in my arms. Come on, Matteo said softly. Let's put her down. We all need rest before the chaos starts again tomorrow. Tomorrow, more negotiations with allied families, more navigating the delicate peace we'd built, more teaching our daughter to be strong and kind in a world that often rewarded neither. But tonight was just us. Family, love, choice. Everything my mother had run from, transformed into everything worth staying for. I kissed Maria's forehead, breathed in her baby scent, and felt something I'd never expected to feel in the Mafia world. Complete. Not because the darkness had disappeared, not because danger had stopped lurking around every corner, not because our lives were easy or simple or safe, but because I'd chosen this. All of it. The man, the world, the complicated, messy, dangerous love that somehow made everything worth it. And that choice, that fundamental freedom to decide my own path, was the greatest gift my mother could have given me, even if she'd given it by running, and I'd claimed it by staying. I love you, I whispered to Matteo as we walked back to our room, Maria sleeping peacefully between us. I love you, too. His arm came around my shoulders. My bride, my choice, my forever. Our forever, I corrected. Our forever, he agreed. And in the darkness of a Mafia estate, in a world built on violence and power and ancient contracts, we built something different. We built love. Chosen, earned, and absolutely real.